because I decided to do this very short video about energy consumption. And this is something that I got so inspired by my conversation with one of the amazing humanitarians that I had yesterday. And we were talking about how all of our energy, brain energy, right, goes to all the different things. And then in the end of the day, we feel like depleted. We don't really want to be talking to anyone. And we feel like we just need to crawl in bed and do nothing, even though we know that that's not really how it can keep going, but we feel like that's the only energy we have left for. So if that is you, here is a solution that I want to propose to you, and I want you to try it out for yourself, which one works best. I will be proposing three solutions, but I want to quickly explain beforehand why we drain our energy, right? Or rather, what drains our energy, because we often believe that our energy is drained by other people, by our work, by our own thinkings or family things, or we may believe that our energy is drained by doing a lot of work. But that's not true, because our energy is drained by our thoughts. Now, those thoughts, of course, can be about work, about other people, about ourselves, about whoever, right? But all of those drained energy comes from our thoughts that keep creating the feelings of some type of exhaustion or some type of feeling of powerlessness, a feeling of frustration, feeling of disappointment. And those are the feelings that will keep draining our energy. So if we want to conserve or save our energy, brain energy for all the things that matter to us, then we need to be careful how we're using that energy, right? So that's really what it comes down to. Now, those thoughts can be of different categories, and I have categorized several, but you can, of course, think for yourself what are your categories are. So, one of the categories that I see that keeps draining energy is the thoughts that keep creating judgmental statements, judgmental conclusions, right? That could be about someone else. For instance, maybe we don't like our boss, maybe we don't like a particular colleague, maybe we don't like someone specific from counterparts, whoever. Excuse me. And then we keep feeling this judgment about how they're not competent, how they're not this, how they're not that. And then all of that keep piling and piling emotions. And then if we don't process them, they will keep like taking and eating all of our energy. So another big area that I see that we spend a lot of our brain energy, and that energy is resistance. And that is very strong in many of the people that I interact and coach. So resistance is something like, I don't really want to be doing this way, or I shouldn't be doing this way, or this shouldn't be this way. This is not how it's supposed to be. You see, like always trying to resist to the reality of what's happening. And this is not how it's supposed to be. This is not how I should be doing. And that will eat up a lot of our energy. Another third area that I see that we have a lot of uh, energy draining thoughts is the thought about indecision, right? So, in other words, not really being where we are and also not really being where we want to be, and then being in between. And that keeps and eats up a lot of our brain energy, because we are fundamentally not really wanting to be where we are now, and also we're not there where we want to be, and therefore having this conflict within ourselves that keeps then eating up a lot of our energy. Now, you may find many more areas that you see where your energy is being consumed without you even realizing it, right? So that's why I have given you three ideas of where to look for and how to look for, but the rest you can do it yourself. So the way that I would suggest that you do is, one of the first things that I always recommend to my clients is that writing down all the thoughts that keep feeling like, or if you can't recognize the thoughts, keep writing like all the feelings that you keep experiencing on the daily basis, right? So the thoughts could be, or sorry, the feelings could be frustration, disappointment, apathy, some kind of like not wanting to do it, resistance, right? So write down all of them and then get curious as to what of your thoughts are creating those feelings. Because if you keep focusing on this person should be this way, this person should be this way, they will not be that way, because we know that we can change other people. So therefore, what are we going to do about our thoughts about those people is what matters, right? So that's why the first thing is writing down all your feelings and then get curious as to what are your own thoughts about them, about yourself, about your situation, about your work, are creating these thoughts. The second is then ask yourself several questions. Ask yourself questions of, is this person or my thoughts about this person is worth losing my energy? For instance, is it worth it? I don't know, because oftentimes my brain also used to say things like, well, this person should be this way, this person has this as higher seniority, obviously this person can't be saying this, right? But then I kept then asking myself, well, do I really want to be saying that? Do I really want to be opposing? Do I really want to be like contradicting or in my own head, right? Having all this judgment about this person if I don't really do anything about it? Right. One thing is if I decide to do something about it, and then I decide to think about what are the things I'm going to say, how am I going to say it, how am I going to solve this? That's one thing. But if we're not doing that, then what's the point of keep repeating and repeating our own judgment about the other person? What's the point of giving our energy, precious brain energy, to that person? Because think about it, whenever you are allowing your thoughts about this person to be dominating your day, that means that you're just giving so much power to the other person, right? So much power to that person, even though that's probably what you're not wanting to do. So that's why question whether these thoughts about this person, about this work, about this situation is worth you losing your energy. If the answer is no, then decide what you're going to do. Because you can also decide to think in a particular way, not to think about it, or focus on something that really matters to you. So that's the second step. Excuse me. The third step that I think many of us know and maybe know intellectually, but somehow we don't really apply it or think about it or like get lost in it, or maybe we don't really think that's a useful thing to do. But we know that there is this communication scheme, right? So the communication scheme is like this: one person thinks, and then they feel something, and then they talk, and then we are the one hearing it, and then we have a thought about this, and then we feel something, and then we start acting, right? So let me repeat it again. So one person that we're interacting, they have a thought, and then they feel in a certain way, and then they say something to us. Then we hear that whatever they said, and then we have our thinking, our thought about that thing that we heard, and then that thinking starts causing some emotion, and then we start acting. When you see this scheme, you can always see where are you hanging up or on, or where are you getting lost, or where are you getting stuck on in that scheme. Because as soon as we keep believing that the other person who made me feel this way, then we will always be giving the power to that person, giving all of our energy to that person. But do we really want to do that? Now, I'm not talking about the abuse situation or the any misconduct, right? So that's why I'm not talking about the situation where you really need to report. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about the day to day a work life where we are interacting with other humans. And then you can always ask yourself, where am I getting hung up on in this scheme of the conversation? Because as long as we're skipping the part where we're hearing something and then we're thinking about it, about what they said, and that thinking is creating the feeling instead of that person putting a feeling to us, then we can start realizing, I actually don't need to react this way. I actually don't need to think this way, or I actually don't need to feel this way, or I actually don't need to spend my powerful brain energy on those things or on those things that the other person said. Instead, I can focus on what I really want to focus on. Because we know that the energy, the brain energy is life, right? That's what moves us, that what helps us to get to the things, to interact with family and loved ones. That's what gets us to be working and doing the things and fighting for the cause and all of those things. And if we keep depleting that energy and keep being in this deficit situation, then we will not be wanting to be where we are, even though intellectually we may understand that it's a great place or that I have built an amazing place. But still, if we're not feeling energetic to be going for what we really want within that environment, that we don't like it, no matter how great it sounds from the outside. So that's why I really want you to think about how you are spending your brain energy and what are the main um, users of that main of your brain energy, right? What are the main users? Just like the way that you would look at your smartphone, right? Our smartphone has this 100% battery level, and I talked about this before. And imagine that you have the same, like your brain has 100% battery level for the day, and then imagine that you're spending that 100%, like 30% for judgments, 20% for resistance, another 20% for indecision. That would be already what, 70% gone. And then you have only 30% to focus on doing the work, but then you don't really have much to contribute, or you don't really have much to work on except doing the things that you absolutely have to. And that feels exhausting as well, because then you will be forcing yourself to do that. That's why, if we don't want to be in that situation, if we don't want to be feeling those situations, then we need to get very curious and very careful as to how are we spending our brain energy. So when I say this, many, like some of you may say things like, well, I don't really want to become the person who does not care about work, or I don't really want to be the person who goes to the other extreme. Absolutely, I totally understand. But think about it. If we're not careful about how we're using our brain energy, then we are going to eventually become the person who doesn't care, because we don't really have simply energy to care for. So that's why one of the best ways to take care of ourselves and take care of our brain energy is to really get very audit like clear as to these are the things I'm going to spend my energy on, these are the things I'm not going to spend my energy on, and this is how I'm going to show up at work, because otherwise it will be so easy to get hung up on different things, right? So that's why, my dears, if you are wanting to transition from being the person who does not really know where the energy went, right, to being the person who exactly knows where the energy went, and to stop those consumers of the energy and just focus and spend that energy on the things that really truly matter to us, then absolutely you should come coach with me. I would love to coach you to get to the place where you actually love being where you are, and then you can always decide to transition if you want to. But the first thing first, we need to start looking at how you're consuming your precious brain energy. Have an amazing week, everyone, and speak to you actually very soon.